Today's Monday, March 8th, 2021. Coming up, a Roland Martin Unfiltered. Jury selection for Derek Chauvin has been paused while new charges are being considered. In fact, the prosecutors also are appealing a decision from the appeals court. So we will, of course, keep you updated on what's going on there. Also, today's show, Georgia Republicans narrowly passed a voter suppression bill in the Senate. But why are they boycotting to stop debate? Democrats are angry with what they're doing. They're getting rid of course, absentee balloting. No excuse absentee balloting, even though they passed it 15 years ago because they thought it was going to help them. It helped the Democrats. President Joe Biden marked the anniversary of the Selma Bridge crossing. Bloody Sunday, the 56th anniversary, by expanding voting access. We'll tell you about it. Also, folks, we'll tell you about the founder for the X-Boys. Share some interesting thoughts about voting as well. We'll also be joined by 3 black doctors to discuss structural racism in the medical industry. Plus, fitness expert Averi Woodley is here with fitness tips for our Fit, Live, Win segment. And, of course, we talked about the story out of Plano, Texas. Young boy forced to drink urine. What the hell is going on? It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
Day one of the trial of ex-Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin is taking place. It ended early today. Hennepin County Judge Peter Cahill postponed the jury selection as prosecutors asked an appeals court to decide whether the trial should resume, while an appeal to reinstate the third-degree murder charges for Chauvin are still pending. Judge Cahill said he intends to resume the jury selection process tomorrow morning unless the Court of Appeals orders him to stop. Now, all day we have been, of course, live streaming various developments taking place out of Minneapolis on our Roland Martin Unfiltered feed. We've been streaming a protest outside of the courtroom, people there speaking up on behalf of George Floyd, of course, the black man who was murdered by Derek Chauvin when he pressed his knee up against his neck Memorial Day in 2020. Now, Chauvin, of course, is the officer who got the most serious charges against him. And so we've been live streaming the scene outside. Also, folks, 1,000 National Guard troops surrounding the courthouse. What the hell is that all about? In addition, of course, you have Chauvin and his supporters as well. Joining us right now is Leslie Resman. She's the former president for the Minneapolis NAACP, also founder of Don't Complain, Activate. Leslie, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. First and foremost, we've been making it clear to these folks in the media, this is not the George Floyd trial. This is the Derek Chauvin murder trial, the person who is charged with murdering George Floyd. George Floyd is not the one who's going to be put on trial here.
Oh, 100%. Officer Chauvin is a murderer. He's actually a serial murderer. If you ask people here in Minnesota, this is not the first case, but this is going to be the last. We are looking forward to him being not only charged, but convicted of the murder of Brother George Floyd.
One of the things that, again, happened was that the appeals court threw out they overturned the decision in throwing out third-degree murder charges against Derek Chauvin, and that's what is being appealed. And so that's what the holdup is with jury selection today.
100%. I'm very confident in Attorney General Keith Ellison and his continued push to make sure that the correct charges are brought against Officer Chauvin. Obviously, we are not happy to see it delayed at least until tomorrow, but we're looking forward to getting this trial started.
But one of the things that that we look at here is that obviously how Minneapolis responded to this. It was the murder of George Floyd has sparked national unrest all across this country. What do you make of this massive presence of National Guard troops around the courthouse?
I think it's overrated. Minnesota, Minneapolis spent over $1 million barricading the courthouse. I think it's important to note they're not only intentional about protecting property, but protecting a white male police officer who murdered a black male so that he could get his day to stand at trial, a day that George Floyd did not get when Officer Chauvin took law and order into his own hand and decided to murder brother George Floyd. I think that it's always alarming to see the extent that America is willing to go to protect property and white people, quote unquote, from black people who are typically just peaceful protesters.
Obviously, and also the family's not too happy if a judge decided only one family member can be present in the courtroom, supposedly because of COVID restrictions.
Yeah, that's also very alarming. Especially because his family's coming from Houston too, right? That's important to note that many of the family members are not here in Minnesota. So to have the family fly all the way in from Houston and just have them going in one at a time, in and out, I know that they can do better than that.
Absolutely. And so we're going to be covering this every single day. And certainly all eyes are on the nation, what's happening there in Minneapolis.
Thank you.
All right, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, as I said, the George Floyd family is there. Terrence Floyd, his brother, spoke earlier today to the assembled media. We carried this live on our stream, and here it is.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Kevin McCall, Civil Rights Leader, founder of the Crisis Action Center. We are joined by Terrence Floyd, the brother of George Floyd, Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, and attorney Sanford Rubenstein. We are here today to mark the continual road of justice. This road started when myself and Terrence and Attorney Rubenstein and others took the trip to Minnesota to call for justice and to call for peace. This is a continuous journey that we must continue to raise our voice and be heard. Millions of people across the country, of the USA and other countries, heard the rallying cry of justice for George Floyd. And now we are at a pivotal moment where the trial has started. And we know that people have different emotions and different aspects about what should folks expect, about what should happen. But we believe in God that justice would prevail. We believe in those peaceful protesters that continue to raise their voice and screaming, "No justice, no peace." We've been dealing with it last May, and we're going to be dealing with it in this month. We are hopeful and prayerful that the system that they tell us to believe in will work for us. We're prayerful that the system that they told us to be able to wait and let it work for us, that justice will reign. We're prayerful for that. And we want to say that those who want to protest, that they continue to protest, but do it peacefully. Don't loot. Don't do the things of destruction. Do it in peace. We'll be going down to Minnesota, Minneapolis, on March the 27th, after the jury selection, and we'll be down there calling for justice and monitoring and support of the Floyd family. Terrence will be inside the courtroom. Once the alternate family member will take their rightful place inside the courtroom. Because that's what justice does, is stay on top of a case. Not just when it's hot, but when nothing's happening. And we want to make sure that former officer Chauvin be held responsible to the fullest extent of the law.
First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for the love that you've shown my family in this trying time. Basically, it's kind of surreal right now, but we have to basically relive this whole situation all over again. But by the help of God and my circle that's around me, Reverend McCall, Rubenstein, Mama Carr, David Wright, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to help my family get through this. Like it was said, I'll be down there for this case, and I'm praying and hoping for the outcome that we all want. But, in reality, I'm going to say, if it don't go that way, I just know and believe in my heart that it's going to be change regardless for us as a nation. Thank you.
Go to my pound. Dr. Clemmy Harris, Director of Africana Studies, Department of History, Utica College. Dr. Avis Jones-Demever, Political Analyst. Dr. Julian Malveaux, Economist, President Emerita, Bennett College. I'll start with you, Avis. This, of course, is the trial all eyes are going to be looking at. We're still, of course, waiting to see what the appeals court is going to decide here. But the reaction so far, I'm really not understanding 1,000 National Guard troops surrounding the courthouse. That really?
Yeah. Apparently they had all these extra National Guard troops because they weren't at the Capitol on January 6th. I mean, it's really insulting that here we go again with another look at how institutionalized racism plays itself out in American society. It is an insult to Black people. And not to mention the whole travesty that brings us to this position to having to have that trial in the first place. And so I'm hoping that we will see a modicum of justice and see justice, period, at the end result of this trial. But once again, just looking at the history of this nation, unfortunately, I won't believe it until I see it.
That is the position many folks actually have, Clemmy, and that is, not much faith in seeing a prosecutor a police officer held accountable for their actions that resulted in the murder of George Floyd.
So I have to agree with you, Roland. I certainly agree with my esteemed panelists. There is a very long history of not holding police officers accountable, and we had to sort of take a step back to see what's happening here. To challenge a police officer is to challenge the sovereign power of the state, right? The state has the power to police the body. The state empowers police officers to kill. This is a system that, while framed around the murder of George Floyd, dates all the way back to racial slavery and colonialism. So it's important that we sort of understand that. So when we see these 1,000 members of the National Guard that are there, they are not there ultimately to sort of ensure that justice is there. They're sort of continuing a long tradition of racism when it comes to policing the Black body. But more importantly, it is this notion that somehow or another Black folk are the problem, not the individual Chauvin who's in the courthouse on trial. And we certainly saw that when it came down to preparing for the security of the nation's capital, that they were completely underprepared. But when you go back to the Black Lives Matter movement protests in DC during the summer, you had more than one could estimate in terms of National Guard presence, in terms of coordination with local police and Capitol Police. It is very clear that when it comes to a police response, racism is absolutely in play in this trial, as it has been across time and space when it comes to policing Black and brown people.
Julian.
You know, Amanda Gorman, the brilliant young sister who gave that wonderful poem at the inauguration, was profiled outside her apartment building, I believe yesterday or the day before. The police officer said she was a threat. She's a little bitty girl, about 5'2". I don't see how she could be perceived as a threat. But this is a differential perception of what a threat is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
Excuse me?
Julian, go ahead.
White boys with clubs and swords and shields are not perceived as a threat as they storm the Capitol. But a little bitty Black girl, one day an icon, and she's one day an icon and next day a threat. The differential perception of threat is always going to put Black people at a disadvantage. So to have 1,000 National Guards people there, to do what? Black people have not been out of line or out of order. They have orderly protested. So what we see here, again, is the way that our system is set up against Black people. Now, the other thing, Roland, that we need to basically deal with is the notion that Keith Ellison is one of the most brilliant attorneys that I know. He is absolutely off the chain. He rejected the notion of a third-degree murder charge because it's a lesser charge. Now the judge says they want them to consider that. Why do you want to go? You got first degree, you got second degree, third degree. That's, I won't say it's a slap on the wrist. You still can serve jail time, but again, you're devaluing Black life. And this is why you have people say Black lives matter, because every time you basically collide with the judicial system, you're devaluing Black life. So I hope that, as we all do, that there is justice here, but I also hope that this is an opportunity, again, to look inward and say, what is wrong with this system that a man can put his knee on somebody's neck for almost 9 minutes, 8 minutes and 45 seconds, and and smirks throughout it, and has no remorse, has never apologized. This is not, his life was not in danger. He is just a murderer, period, end of conversation.
Well, again, jury selection is underway. The judge says it will resume tomorrow, depending upon what the court says. And so we'll be paying attention to that to see exactly what takes place. Again, folks, if you want to keep up with what's going on in Minneapolis in the Derek Chauvin trial, all you got to do is stay tuned to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll be live streaming the jury selection throughout. So we simply just come to our YouTube channel all throughout the day. Set your notifications so when we go live from Minneapolis, you will be notified. Folks, to mark the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, yesterday, President Joe Biden issued an executive order to promote voting access. The executive order directs federal agencies to actively assist states with registering voters and submit plans within 200 days that outline steps to expand voter registration. It also includes measures to increase voting access for federal employees, international voters, and active duty military members. The executive order is a direct response to the 250-plus bills Republicans are pushing across the country. Here's some of what Biden had to say on yesterday.
The blood of John Lewis and so many other brave and righteous souls that was spilled in Selma on this Sunday in 1965 sanctified a noble struggle. And when the country saw those images that night, America was forced to confront the denial of democracy, the fierce urgency of justice. Congress passed the Voting Rights Act a few months later, and President Johnson signed it into law. But the legacy of the March in Selma is that while nothing can stop free people from exercising their most sacred power as a citizen, there are those who will do anything they can to take that power away. Today we have a hailstorm, not a rainstorm, a hailstorm. In 2020, our very democracy on the line, even in the midst of a pandemic, more Americans voted than ever before. multiple recounts in states, and decisions of more than 60 cases from judges appointed by my predecessor, including at the Supreme Court, upheld the integrity of this historic election. Yet instead of celebrating this powerful demonstration of voting, we've seen an unprecedented insurrection in our capital and a brutal attack on our democracy on January the 6th. And a never before seen effort to ignore, undermine, and undo the will of the people. And to think of that, and yet it's been followed by an all-out assault on the right to vote in state legislatures all across the country. You know, during the current legislative sessions, elected officials in 43 states have already introduced over 250 bills to make it harder for Americans to vote. We cannot let them succeed. Last week, the House of Representatives passed HR1, the For the People Act of 2021. This is a landmark piece of legislation that is urgently needed to protect the right to vote and the integrity of our elections and to repair and strengthen our democracy. I hope the Senate does its work so I can sign it into law. I also urge Congress to fully restore the Voting Rights Act, named in John Lewis's honor. Today, on the anniversary of Bloody Sunday, signing an executive order to make it easier for eligible voters to register to vote and improve access to voting. Every eligible voter should be able to vote and have that vote counted. And I'll close with this. A few days before he passed, Jill and I spoke with John, Congressman Lewis. But instead of answering our concerns about him, we talked about how you doing, John. He asked me to stay focused on the work left undone to heal and to unite this nation around what it means to be an American. That's the God's truth. John wouldn't talk about his pending death or his concerns. He said, we've just got to get this done. That we're all created equal. We all deserve to be treated equally. On this day of reflection, please, let's stay focused on the work ahead. Let's remember all those who came before us as a bridge to our history so we don't forget its pain, and as a bridge to our future so we never lose hope. May God bless their memory. May God bless you all. And may God protect our forces.
All this is important because Republicans in Georgia are pushing forward a massive voter suppression bill. Today, the Senate voted and approved by a narrow one-vote majority Senate Bill 241. Of course, that particular bill would end no-excuse absentee balloting. Critics also say that this voter suppression bill is going to cost Georgia taxpayers an additional $30 million in the next election cycle. That makes no sense whatsoever, y'all. No sense whatsoever. Now, they're calling on folks to reach out to Republicans, including John Albers, Clinton Dixon, Max Byrne, Randy Robertson, Brian Strickland, Jeff Mullins, Bill Cowsert. Now, here's the deal. Only 3 Republicans chose not to vote with today's bill. The lieutenant governor, who does not have a vote, opposes the bill as well. So exactly what is going on in Georgia and how much sense does it make? Joining us right now is King Randall One, founder of the X for Boys organization based out of Georgia. So King, explain why in the world, you're conservative, correct?
Yes, sir.
So please explain to me why this bill, why Republicans are pushing forth a voter suppression bill when last year we saw record turnout in Georgia, record turnout. So why would they want to restrict voting when you just had record turnout in Georgia?
Well, let me start off by saying you had me mistaken. I'm not a Republican. I do consider myself conservative.
No. Actually, I didn't say Republican. I said you're conservative.
Okay.
I said you're conservative.
Right, absolutely.
That's what I said.
Right. Yeah, I was saying that because you called me a Republican on Twitter. However, with this particular bill, I don't consider voting my particular fight. I do consider voting a asset to us and maybe something we can use as a tactic to help. But as far as us pushing voting all the way out, like voting is going to be some systemic change for the Black community, to me is not the way to go. If you look at the human anatomy of the body has its many different parts. And I do respect you guys' fight, in regards to voting, but I don't consider myself fighting for the right to vote that much. Because
do you not vote?
We hadn't got anything.
Do you
from
not vote?
Government. Yes, sir. I vote. Absolutely.
Okay, so when you say you guys' fight, first of all, there are multiple fights, there are multiple issues we can be concerned about. Voting is one of those issues. Are you not concerned that Republicans in your state are trying to restrict access to the ballot for no reason other than they are pushing the lie that Donald Trump also pushed?
Right, absolutely. I understand exactly what you're saying. However, again, that's not my fight. I believe.
No. I know. I asked you a question. And the question is this here: do you believe Republicans in your state are wrong to be pushing this voter suppression bill?
Can you give me the list of things that's all on the bill? Because I know you said the voter ID.
Well, no. Here's a perfect example. This particular bill right here gets rid of no excuse absentee balloting. Republicans in Georgia passed no excuse absentee balloting 15 years ago, thinking it was going to help them. They're angry because you had people who voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and also John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock won. So they're changing the law because they're angry they lost at the ballot box. But for 14 years, it was fine until last year. Is that, again, do you consider that to be egregious on the part of Georgia Republicans? Why would they change the law because they lost? How about making a better argument for the voters?
I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. I'm not against you there. I definitely think that is an issue that I believe you guys could fight. But that, again, voting is not my issue to fight. I believe. So
what's your issue to fight?
My issue, I fight for young Black men before they die. And that's what I do in my organization. I do teach them to vote, but I don't tell them that voting is going to be the be all end all.
No one says the be all the end all, but it's a part of it.
But you guys promote voting like it's just going to change like the systemic outlook of the Black community. That's not where it's at. We have to get out and go do for self in our own communities.
So define do for self.
When I say do for self, you shared one of my tweets, my videos, and I was actually a big fan of yours, but you shared one of my tweets. When I said Black people need to stop begging the government and go and do for self out in our communities, you shared the video and called me an idiot. I didn't see anything idiotic about that statement at all.
So when you say do for self, like what? Explain that.
Okay, for example, here in Albany, Georgia, we complain about our school systems a lot. Many of our young men can't read. They have very horrible literacy rates. We don't have any rehab programs here for juvenile offenders. What I decided to do, I started a program 2 years ago, decided to do for self, and I started taking children into my home. I started taking custody of kids from juvenile court, and I started molding them and training them and teaching them skilled trades, etc. Now I'm 21 years old. I just purchased a school here in Albany, Georgia, to combat us being in the government-funded schools that are not teaching our children what they need to learn. So that's what I mean by do for self, simply getting up and going out and do it.
So
I beat the stereotype that I'm young, Black in America, and I can't do anything because somebody's holding me down. Absolutely not.
So a question.
Teenagers went and go ahead. Me and some teenagers went and bought a school, and we just bought a school bus simply from going out and doing work. We decided to go fix our own communities. I'm not expecting anything from no politician. I'm not expecting nothing from Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or nobody. We're gonna go do it for ourselves, and that's what I believe we need to be doing. I can vote, sure, but nothing's gonna change in our communities.
So you went to the juvenile court system. Is that not government?
Absolutely.
So when you say purchased a school, and this school is going to be what? Private school, charter school? What kind of school is it going to be?
No, it will be independently owned. This will not be funded by the government.
No, that's why I asked you. So it's going to be a private school?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a boarding school.
A boarding school. And then for the folks to be able to afford to send their kids to the boarding school, what kind of mechanisms are they using in Georgia? Their own funds? Are they using school vouchers? What are they using?
I can't hear you. Say that again for me.
I said, what mechanism are they using to send their kids there to pay for the school? Their own money, or are they utilizing vouchers from the Georgia government?
Absolutely. So for our school, we're financed completely by donors. We have many donors that have given yearly endowments to our school that will be able to pay for these students to come to our school for free. Many people believe in our mission, and we're making sure that young Black men, where we live, where we don't have any rehab programs for juvenile offenders to even get out of jail and stay out of jail, we have people that believe in our mission that are trying to send children to the Expert Boys for free. We have many people that are trying to send kids to this boarding school to be able to take care of themselves. That's what I mean by doing for self. We got to simply get up and do it.
So you don't believe that government policymakers play any role whatsoever in being able to impact the lives of Black boys and others in Georgia?
If we take them out of that government system, we don't have to worry about that. I keep saying.
How is that? So no, hold on. So here's the question. Hold up. Here's the question. Mm-hmm. How do you remove someone out of a government system when we all live in government systems?
Okay, being literal. Absolutely, we all live in a government system. Absolutely. However, you can do things to remove most government from your life.
How?
As far as trying to get yourself out of food stamps,
How?
trying to get yourself off of welfare. You got to go work. You got to get jobs. You got to get out here and go and do it.
So hold up. So I'm just curious. So if somebody doesn't have a job,
mm-hmm.
are they not applying to government for unemployment benefits or insurance?
Absolutely.
So how can that person remove themselves out of government when that's what government provides?
Absolutely. Well, my thing is trying to make sure you're not allowing the government to finance your whole entire life. As long as you're giving somebody the right to feed you, you're giving them the right to starve you as well. People are living their whole lives off the government systems. It was the day the government decide, well, we're going to cut food stamps, we're going to cut this and cut that. What we going to do? We have people out here living off those systems. So I believe in teaching our people how to go survive without the government. That's my biggest thing.
But again, though, you keep saying, I'm trying to understand. You keep saying how to survive without the government. You act as if a young Black boy who comes into your program will not interface with government in any way. They will interface with government still driving down the street. They will interface with government trying to get a driver's license. They will interface with government trying to get a voter ID. They will interface with government trying to apply for financial aid to go to college. Mm-hmm. So they're going to interface with government in many ways. The point I'm saying is, doesn't it make sense that Black folks should be engaged in a political process to where we are impacting policy that also impacts us? Or are you saying that doesn't matter at all?
I only believe that we should breed politicians in our community that we raise ourselves. People that are funded by white Democrats, white Republicans alike. If you were funded by anybody white, I don't believe you have the best interests of our community at all. I don't care who you are. Whether you be Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, Kelly Loeffler, or what's his name? The other guy that was running. I don't care who you are. You don't have the best interests of the Black community at heart because we are not funding their campaigns fully. I believe that we have to raise our own politicians, which is what we're trying to do in our program. We are going to put them in government. Some of them want to go run for positions, but we know we bred them in our communities.
But hold on. See, not
nothing white Democrats that came and gave us and spent millions of dollars on all these ads and got folks all riled up about these guys for you to come keep Black people remain a Democrat Party and the Republican Party side chick. They only come to the Black community when they want our vote to get off and then disappear. We don't never see them again.
But here's the thing that's again is interesting. You just offered a contradiction. You first say you want to remove people from government, but then you say you're raising them to run. So which one is it?
When I say remove from government, I'm saying keep as much government out of your life as possible.
But how are you raising people to run for office?
Say it again.
How are you then raising people to run for office if you don't want folks involved in government? So here's the deal. Okay, how about this? Okay. So the young men that you're raising up to be in government, how in the world are they going to be able to be effective when you have Republicans who are passing voter suppression laws, and then you're saying, well, that's really our issue? Aren't they making it harder for the very folks you trying to raise up to get elected?
I didn't say our issue. I said that's not my issue that I'm fighting.
But like you just said you're raising up politicians.
Again, that's for when the children, what they want to do. I'm not raising them directly just saying, oh, you got to go be a politician. No, for the kids that want to go in that area, I have mentors for them to go into that area.
But shouldn't we be fighting voter suppression laws that make it harder for them to get elected?
Mr. Roland, if you can't go get, what's the problem with black folk going to get voter ID?
No, the issue is not a voter ID.
Okay.
No, wait. Hold up. Stop. Hold up. You just said, what's the issue? If you live in rural Georgia, and you've seen the closures of driver's license offices, and you don't have transportation, then the question is, how are you then accessing it? In Texas, for instance, when Texas passed its voter ID law, they showed that 600 to 800,000 African Americans and Latinos were going to be negatively impacted by the voter ID law in Texas because of where they could go. In Texas, they said that you could not use your state-issued student ID at a state institution, but if you had a hunting license, you could. In Pennsylvania, when they passed their voter ID law, they required you to actually travel to an office to fill out a form to say you could not afford a license, an ID. You then have to go back home, and then once they've certified that, come back. There was some 20% of elderly who couldn't do it. There are black people in Georgia who do not have birth certificates who cannot get a voter ID. So that's just one issue with the voter ID. But in Georgia, Republicans, hold up, that's just one issue. In Georgia, right now, Republicans want to make it a crime to hand out water and food if folks are waiting in line to vote. Does that make sense?
Okay, if they gonna do that, then how about before people go and vote, y'all go set up like you usually do and go hand it to them before they go get in line? It's a way around that.
You do realize there were massive lines in Georgia and other states, but again, you still dance around my question. Why legislate handing out of water and food? Why?
Well, I don't know. You got to ask them that.
No, you the conservative. You in Georgia. Hold up. These are your lawmakers, not mine. These are yours. So the question is, how much sense does it make to outlaw water and food?
I don't see why they're doing that. That's something. That's a question for me too. I don't understand why.
So do you also think it's wrong for Republicans in Georgia to restrict voting on Sundays when they're specifically targeting black people who do souls to the polls? Is that good or bad?
Well, I didn't see the law that said they're directly targeting black people, but I would assume
who votes on Sundays?
To the polls.
More black people are participating in voting on Sunday and so to the polls. That's targeting black people. So you think that's okay? So you also think that's a bad idea, right?
I would think that's a bad idea, but if that push come to shove, we got to vote on another day. If we really want to vote, we got to go make it happen.
Push come to shove. What about ballot drop boxes? So, for instance, they're going to require them to be located inside of early voting locations, which means that you can only drop off your ballot when the voting location is open. If it's closed at 6 and you get off work, you can't drop it off. As opposed to right now, it's 24 hours. If you could just come by like a mailbox, drop it off. Good or bad?
That's bad. I agree. That's bad.
Okay. So that's bad.
Absolutely, I agree.
Got it. You also have, they restrict early voting buses to emergencies, meaning if you said y'all bought a school bus, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That means if you decided to say, hey, we're going to provide a public service to the people in Albany and drive them to the polls, this law says you can't do that.
That's a problem.
So, for the things I mentioned is a problem. Okay, all right. Do you also think it's a problem? It says bans outside funding of elections from nonprofit organizations. So you have governmental entities who say, hey, we can't afford X number of workers. You got nonprofits out there, nonpartisan, where people actually fund staff and things along those lines. Republicans in your state say, oh, we're going to outlaw that too.
Okay.
Good or bad?
That's a problem.
All right. So disqualifies provisional ballots cast in the wrong precinct. So let's say you weren't aware they switched the precinct and you actually voted in that precinct. This law says, sorry, forget about it. It gets thrown out.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's good or bad. It's just something you got to pay attention to.
Yeah, but you got to pay attention to. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
They set a deadline to request absentee ballots 11 days before Election Day. Why? I mean, like, what's the big deal?
You got to ask your lawmakers.
They're actually passing it, but you're a resident of the state. Aren't you concerned about the laws that these folks are passing that are going to have an impact on the people there in Albany, Georgia?
Absolutely. However, that's not my fight. We have people fighting for that, but I'm not fighting for that. I mean,
you're not fighting for it. Do you care?
Okay.
Do you care?
Yeah, I care, but I know I got people like you and other people around here fighting for our right to do that. But the body has many different parts. That's not my fight.
Gotcha. So if you're trying to move folks to change things, they're in Albany. And this is one of those things that is a part of our process, is a part of way of life, meaning you can be out there, you can have your own business, you can do for self, you can have an urban farm, you can do all those sort of different things. But if Republican lawmakers in Georgia are making it difficult for you as a citizen to be able to participate in the electoral process, should that not be contested? Should that not be fought? Yes or no?
I believe it should be fought. If we do find issue and fault with that, I definitely believe we should stand up and go fight for that. The people who do fight for that, but that's not something I fight for. Again, that's just not my fight. I know we have people here that are doing that and that are fighting for different injustices, but that's not my area of injustice. Body has different parts.
You talked about getting donations from various people. Do you think it's a part of your fight if African American businesses are not getting their fair share of city, county, and state contracts? Because if black businesses are able to actually get their fair share of taxpayer dollars with contracts, they actually can create and grow businesses and build capacity to help fund initiatives like yours. So does that matter?
Yeah, absolutely. That matters, yes.
But that's also tied to government. So would you be willing to work with folks who are petitioning government to increase the capacity of black businesses in getting state contracts?
Ask that question again for me.
Would you be willing to fight with others to grow the capacity of black businesses to get city, county, and state contracts where they are being able to build their businesses? Because in America, prior to COVID, you had 2.6 million black-owned businesses in America. 2.5 million only had one employee doing average revenue of $54,000. Because of COVID, we lost 41% of black businesses. And so does that petitioning government matter getting those contracts to you?
Absolutely. I definitely agree.
So that's something that you would also fight for?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm even encouraging some of my children to start businesses, so that's something they would have to look into. Absolutely.
But wouldn't you also want to have legislators who are in office who are more likely to support that initiative versus those who are against it?
Absolutely. I definitely agree.
Which means that in order to get those folks elected, we must be able to have uninhibited access to the ballot.
Right, absolutely. But as far as seeing some of the things on the bill, as far as the feeding and stuff like that, I mean, we not slow and we don't have a learning disability. I believe some of those things we can get taken care of. We can go get IDs. We could go start a Black voter IDs matter and go help people go get their IDs. I mean, these are things we could do.
Yeah, but you keep going back to ID as if that's the only issue, and that's not the only issue.
That's not the only thing. I'm just saying, like, that's one of the issues.
No, that's one.
There.
That's one. I read for you about 10 of them. That's one. So that's one particular thing right there. But what's interesting though is that again, government plays a role in being able to change the condition of the lives of people as well. If there are people who are restricting our access to the ballot, they're restricting our ability to be able to change the conditions of various communities. So therefore, why would we not consider that to be an important issue, just like an important issue of being able to buy a school, fund a school, and when you say do for self? Because again, the people who I hear the most who yell do for self, you know what? They get a whole lot from government.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say do for self, we can't divorce ourselves from the reality of the role that government plays.
Well, this
because
is the same
in fact,
America.
your school you bought, you have to, that has to be up to code, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
That's government.
Okay.
And so we can't. So this notion of removing ourselves from government just doesn't exist because we deal with it every single day.
Well, in conservatism, we believe in less government.
No,
not
they don't.
just no government.
Hold up.
Less government.
If conservatives believe in less government, why are they passing this bill, which is more government and actually is going to cost? Hold up. This bill is going to cost. Hold up. Here's the other deal. This bill is going to cost Georgia taxpayers $30 million more to make it harder to vote. That I would think, as a fiscal conservative, that's stupid.
It is. I agree.
So if you agree with that, and if you agree that it makes no sense to limit Sunday voting, if you agree that it makes no sense banning outside funding of elections, and you agree that it makes no sense restricting early voting buses to emergencies, in your view, Republicans in Georgia should not be voting for this bill and making these changes, yes or no?
Absolutely. Considering the pros and cons, yeah, definitely. I don't believe the bill should pass. Absolutely.
Gotcha. And what do you make of black Republicans who say nothing about any of this, who frankly are silent in Georgia as this is happening?
I'm very critical of black Republicans and black conservatives when they're not addressing the issues that directly affect us. Absolutely, I don't hold my tongue on that at all. If it's an issue that's directly affecting the black community, that's hurting us, absolutely they get chastised. From Candace Owens all the way down to whoever. Everybody gets chastised. From me. I believe we definitely all of us need some criticism, whatever side you on. So I definitely don't hold my tongue regardless of whatever party they consider themselves in, because I'm independent.
And so when you talk about building what you're doing there, what's the next step for that?
Oh, absolutely. All right. So right now we just purchased our school. And again, we're working with boys 11 to 17, and we're working with grades 6 through 12. We have to renovate our school right now. And after we get finished renovating our school, we're also going to start our summer program where we're going to teach 40 young men how to build 2 houses from the ground up. We're going to get Lowe's to sponsor this for us, and we're going to make that happen. So right now, we're just trying to get all our ducks in a row, get the accreditation that we need, so that way the children can use their diplomas to go to college, et cetera, and also do dual enrollment with Albany Technical College here where we are to, work in the skilled trades. Our biggest thing is trying to make sure those children who may not want to go to college also have a way to make it and to see that they can make it. So for me being young and 21 and doing these things for them, I just want to make sure that they know they can be young, black in America and still go make it happen regardless of the stereotypes they give us.
You spoke of accreditation. From who's it? From who?
We have I think it's the Georgia Accreditation Commission.
That's government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. See, the point I'm making here is that even with the effort that you're doing, you cannot divorce yourself from government, which means that which means that for you to be even more effective, what's important is to have individuals who are in power in government who are not standing in the way of what it is that you're trying to do. In fact, they are encouraging that. The problem is when we have individuals who are blocking the very thing that you're talking about and not providing access to folks, whether it's voting, whether it's contracts, whether it's participating in this so-called American dream. That's the fundamental problem I'm talking about. So when I say we have to fight on all those fronts, we can't say I'm going to just do for self as if I don't have to deal with this whole system. We got to make sure that there are people who are in power who are sympathetic to folk like you, but who are not trying to make what you're trying to do harder.
Right, and when I mentioned at the beginning, I said the body has a full anatomy, meaning somebody has to be the heart, somebody has to be the brain, somebody has to be your lungs. When I say I'm doing for self, I'm over here working with my children and we doing for self. You are being the lungs or the brain or what have you, and you are fighting on that end for the Black community. That's not my fight. When I said that, ain't that I don't care. It's just I got stuff I'm worrying about on this side. I like for you to worry about the voter suppression and things like that, but I'm going to worry about the children on this side, and that's what I want to do. I want to help the kids. I don't necessarily worry about what's going on in government because I know people in our communities that are going hard for that. I don't need to go hard for that because other people are going hard for that for us because they believe in what we're doing. So absolutely, I definitely appreciate everybody's fight in our community. I mean, our fight has a whole body, but I can't fight every fight. I'm going to fight the one fight that I believe in and that I'm good at.
Well, absolutely. And that's why I use the phrase, we all have lanes. And that's why it's important, though, for us to recognize that although I might be in this lane, for me, I'm in the media lane. I understand, though, that there's a difference between me leading a fight in another lane and providing support to somebody else in another lane. Mm-hmm. What I'm not going to do is diminish the reality of that or say that's not important. So what I will do is I can sit here and use what I am doing to say, hey, I can amplify what somebody else is doing. But what I'm not going to do is say that's irrelevant to what's going on, because the reality is, even in my case in media, I own this. It's an independent media, but guess what? The federal government spends $1 billion a year on media advertising. If we're getting shut out of those dollars, then we aren't able to grow, but other media institutions are. So I can never be of the position to say, hey, I want to remove myself from government, because the reality is this: when you're born, that birth certificate is a government document. When you get immunized, that's a government document. When you get married, first of all, that high school diploma is a government document. When you get married, that's a government document. When you get divorced, that's a government document. And when you die, your death certificate is a government document. And so my point is this here: I want to make sure that we are involved in the voting process to ensure that we are electing people who have our best interest at heart and who are passing good policy to allow us to be able to do the things that you're talking about. But what I will never do is say, hey, I ain't sweating that, because that could actually make your job a hell of a lot harder. How can folks get in touch with your organization?
Absolutely. Well, my name is King Randall. You can follow me on all social media at New Emerging King on Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat. And Mr. Roland, I definitely would love for us to stop with the Twitter back and forth battles. I'd actually like for you to come speak with my kids, or at least talk to them via Zoom. Because like I said, I was a fan before, but I don't really care for the going back and forth on social media. So I would love for you to speak with the kids. And also Miss Erica Savage, one of your former hosts, she's a big fan of mine. And so I definitely love for you to come talk to my kids. Absolutely.
No, that's not a problem. And again, when I was in Albany, I was there 3 times helping Ossoff and Warnock, trying to rally black folks there. So I had no problem being in Albany, got no problem speaking with the kids. And if I do, I'm definitely going to teach them about the power of voting and how to use it. So just let me know when you want to do that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You just let me know, and we'll do a back and forth offline. All
right. No problem. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Peace out.
I'll bring my panel back into this conversation, Julian, as well as Clemmy and Avis. The thing here that for me, Julian, again, when we talk about these issues, when I hear conservatives talk about less government, the Georgia Republicans actually voted to keep local governments from, quote, defunding the police. Alabama Republicans restricted local governments from taking down Confederate statues. So one of the issues that I have with Republicans and conservatives when they talk about less government, they only like less government when they're not in control.
Well, even more than that, Roland. They talk about less government, but they want to restrict a woman's right to choose. That's government. A woman should be able to have an abortion, not have an abortion. Why are you up in that? We talk about taxation. You know, these Republicans are so concerned about the 1.3 trillion that President Biden wants, but they gave 1.3 trillion to the wealthiest. So they want government to work for them, not for anybody else. What we have to really understand when we deal with this is that the founders did not ever intend to found a democracy. They founded essentially an oligarchy where the wealthy would have more access than other people. And it's basically trickled down. But I'm very disturbed by this young man and his, I love his passion. I'm disturbed by his naivete in terms of talking about too much government, because you can't get a letter through the mail without government, and you're not going to. You're not, so it just seems to me that somehow we missed a generation of civics lessons, literally. And so folks don't know what's up, and they take their passion and sort of misplace it and try to make it something that shouldn't be.
See, the thing that jumps out. Look, I mean, I can go, Clemmy. I can go through history. I can go through this back and forth with Booker T. Washington, who was all about do for self. Then you had the likes of Du Bois and others. I can go back further, Douglas and Martin Delany. People talked about in terms of what's our responsibility, where we're going as a community. The thing for me is that they're all intertwined. They're all intertwined, and that is, I'm doing for self. People said, "Oh man, I wish you would apply for that weekend job when Joanne Reed got the prime time." Why? First of all, that's content I don't own. I'm working on the weekends. I don't control. I can't decide what I really want to cover because they're making decisions, and I can't really decide who I want to book on the show because they decide that too. And so really, I'm just a hired hand. That's fine if that's the system you want to work in. So I'm doing for self, but the point that I was trying to make to him, here I am building a media company, but I'm not in denial about the role that government plays. In that, again, with media advertising, I'm not in denial about the billions of dollars spent in political advertising. So you see, again, when we make the argument that I'm doing for self, we have to still recognize, look, Donald Trump's daddy built $1 billion empire on government money, government housing. See, and so again, when people say self, you gotta start breaking that thing down, and you can't act as if you can create this whole utopia that's completely divorced from anything in government, when the reality is you're going to have to still engage with government.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Roland, you forgot, his daddy didn't only build an empire off of government dollars and housing, he also used race to restrict Black people from being able to live.
Oh, I didn't forget. I didn't forget. Right. I was just focused on the money part, but go ahead.
Right. So I want to hit on a point that Sister Dr. Julianne Louvo talked about, because she talked about a crisis in civics. That was screaming in my mind as I listened to you have that conversation with this young brother. I, too, was very, very touched by his passion, but his lack of understanding of the system of government and his almost rejection to the notion that government could play a role in being able to help him was just absolutely baffling to me. And it kept coming back to me that, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And on top of not knowing what he doesn't know, he was also almost very arrogant in his lack of understanding. I kept thinking about the significance of the Black Power movements that were taking place in the 1960s. One of the critical aspects of those movements was civic education. The power of the ballot was absolutely critical. Everyone had to get trained on the power of the ballot. Training was taking place in Black churches. Training was taking place in Black civic organizations. Everyone was being taught how to learn how to exercise the ballot, what to look out for when they go to the polling stations. And so this notion of him saying that we want less government as somehow less government was going to be more effective in helping him to sort of pull himself up by his bootstraps, once again reflected a real lack of his understanding in terms of the power of the ballot. But I want to go even further than that.
Real quick, I got to go to Avis for the next topic. Go ahead.
Okay. Historically, every time there was less political support, violence against Black people went up. Less political support, economic disenfranchisement of Black people went up. So the notion that somehow or another he could succeed with less government is just simply a reflection of him just not knowing the power of the ballot.
Bottom line is here, Avis, I'm all for us creating our own institutions, but I don't believe, and I tell everybody, when we talk about voting, I've never believed it's the be-all to end-all, but I do believe it is a weapon in the battle.
Oh, absolutely, it's a weapon. And it's a weapon that the other side used quite deftly. That young brother is doing amazing things, and he may be a little naive. But there are other people who are just plain hypocritical. So if you look at a person like Elon Musk, who is a billionaire, who's out here railing against the government all the time, do you know that he has received $5 billion?
That's how he's a billionaire. Government subsidies.
Billionaire.
Taxpayer dollars.
Strictly based on money he got from the government. Yet he's out here every day on Twitter acting like a fool, complaining about the government. You know, these people know what they're doing, but they just don't want you and I to have access to the benefits that are available and that they are getting rich off of, to the tune of being multi-billionaires based on the money that they're getting from the government.
Absolutely. All right, folks, let's talk about this next story. The JAMA Network recently posted a podcast entitled Structural Racism for Doctors. What is it? The Journal of the American Medical Association is a peer-reviewed medical journal published 48 times a year by the American Medical Association, the largest medical group in the country. It publishes original research, reviews, and editorials covering all aspects of biomedicine. They promoted the podcast on Twitter with a tweet that began, go ahead and show it, y'all, "No physician is racist." Show the tweet, please. Okay, I don't know why we don't have the tweet, but the bottom line is, y'all, it just makes no sense whatsoever. They released a statement. I'm going to read that in just a second. I want to go to my panel, Dr. Leon Madugal, President-elect, National Medical Association, Dr. Aisha Corey, and Dr. Georges Benjamin, Executive Director of the American Public Health Association. Dr. Corey, I got to start with you. First of all, how shockingly and stunningly stupid this was released. I guess these folks also forgot why the National Medical Association was started, because of stuff like this from the American Medical Association.
So clearly with my situation of suing my institution for race and gender discrimination, definitely flies in the face of that kind of statement. And I posted on Twitter in response that you're clearly not remembering the history of your parent organization. The tweet, the podcast was stunningly traumatizing for me because it just invalidates the experience that I am having and that so many of us have had in medicine.
Dr. Benjamin, when you saw the tweet and you saw them, even the podcast, just stop it. And all these white doctors, thank God y'all said this. There's no racism among physicians. Thank goodness. I'm sorry. We know one of the reasons why black folks were not hooked on opioids early was because white doctors would not prescribe opioids to African Americans. We know what the research says, how black patients are treated by white doctors. This notion that, first of all, we got the video of the black woman who died from COVID when the hospital was refusing a medical care for her. Give me a break.
Oh, listen, racism exists in medicine. We know that it does. Why should physicians be any different than the rest of society? It does exist, both personalized racism and structural racism. And so we have a lot of work to do. And I think the medical profession, we all have to clean up our own house first.
It was just interesting to me, again, Dr. Madugal, because this led to a massive reaction from black doctors. I'm talking about they blew up social media, force JAMA to take the tweet down, force them to also issue an apology that, and some say, still is not a sufficient apology. This is the actual tweet, Doc, that they put up. No physician is racist. So how can there be structural racism in healthcare? An explanation of the idea by doctors for doctors in this user-friendly podcast from the great Dr. Katz, NYC, HH, and EHL JAMA. How did you feel when you saw this?
Well, Roland, you bring up such wonderful topics to discuss. So this, I would think, goes back to the curriculum of medical school. So in medical school, if you're not taught about racism, institutionalized racism, personally mediated racism, and internalized racism, if you haven't read Dr. Kamara Jones, The Gardener's Tale, a theoretical framework of racism, that needs to be part of the curriculum. So education is the key.
Dr. Curry, again, what's amazing here, this, as I saw this, and then I saw the reaction of these white doctors, all I could think about was Mike Pence on the debate stage saying, all of this implicit bias stuff, all of this talk about systemic racism, this is not America. This is not who we are. Basically, what these white doctors are saying is, the hell with all y'all black doctors. We ain't listening to none of y'all.
And I think that's why you saw a collective of us respond. I know that individually, a group of physicians that I've come to know that are advocating through our online advocacy came together and we wrote an email, a letter to Dr. Katz and others. And soon we will be publishing those responses. But I also have to say, just in my experience, to Dr. McDougall's point, this is about education, not only in the classroom, but beyond. But we do need institutions like the NMA to come out when Dr. Denner and I are being removed from positions when we're trying to do our jobs and educate in medical and training institutions. Additionally, we see that there is an intolerance for this from our white colleagues, especially our younger white colleagues. They were just as
gleeful.
They were
gleeful.
Well, some for sure. But at least the folks in my circle were just as ardent in the removal of such a ludicrous statement.
This was the statement they released. Go ahead and pull it up, y'all. I'm going to read this. I want to read this and we'll get y'all reaction to what JAMA released. This was on March 4th. Come on, pull it up, please. Thank you. On February 24th, JAMA tweeted about a recently posted podcast discussing structural racism in medicine. The language of the tweet, as well as portions of the podcast, do not reflect my commitment as editorial leader of JAMA and JAMA Network to call out and discuss the adverse effects of injustice, inequity, and racism in medicine and society, as JAMA has done for many years. I take responsibility for these lapses and sincerely apologize for both the lapses and the harm caused by both the tweet and some aspects of the podcast. JAMA will schedule a podcast in the future to further discuss issues of structural racism and health and to address concerns raised about the podcast. Howard Balkner, editor-in-chief, JAMA and the JAMA Network. Dr. Benjamin, your response to that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad Howard did that. But I think the fundamental problem here is a lack of understanding from some people what structural racism is. Structural racism is a system of disenfranchisement in our communities. It's when you don't allow people equitably to get on the medical staff. It's where you put your hospitals. It's how do you set up your appointment systems, in addition to how you might treat patients in the healthcare setting. Numerous studies, even published in JAMA, have shown the inequities that the people of color have received in the hands of practitioners who are not treating them equally. And many of these systematic problems have occurred for years. I was in Washington, D.C. when we had a city hospital. And, we had actually a service that was certainly at the city hospital, but on one service, most of the residents were white. And on the other service, most of the residents were African American. And they represented the historical inequities of the system that was still there in Washington, D.C. at that time.
Dr. McDougall, what should happen next?
So what should happen next is, one, Dr. Aletha Maybank at the AMA, she is their chief equity officer, so I'm sure she's involved with this. And so the fact that this went out on their forum, I would think that increasing diversity of their editorial staff and accountability would be one of the things that would happen. And then I'd like to speak to, someone mentioned something about the National Medical Association not being involved. We are engaged in Tulane. We are engaged in Indiana with Dr. Susan Moore, and the president of the Golden State Medical Association of the NMA is engaged in California. So these things are being addressed. And so I just want to speak to that. And so, but back to this issue, I know that the AMA has a number of Black leaders who are stellar in their work. So I think this will also provide a learning opportunity for them to be raised up and to be listened to.
Dr. Corey, final comment.
Yes, I greatly agree with the demand for the editorial board and of this journal and many others to be diversified. Things like this won't happen when we have a seat at the table.
All right then, folks, I surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And we did reach out to JAMA, and hopefully they'll have the courage to come on to talk about this, because certainly they definitely need to diversify their staff, because that was absolutely crazy. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I'm gonna go to my panel in just a second here, but this speaks, folks, again, to what we often talk about in this country: clueless white people. This whole view that, oh no, this system, y'all keep bringing up this systemic. No, these are just sort of isolated things. Well, where I come from, if it's happening in New York City, in Houston, in Dallas, in Charlotte, in St. Louis, in Kansas City, in LA, in Miami, in Portland, and you can't keep happening all over and then somehow it's isolated. Okay? When Serena Williams talked about, this is a Black woman with money, like a lot of money, who had to yell, kick, and scream to get proper child care. When you see Black women dying at higher rates in childbirth, doctors not listening to the pain of Black women doing childbirth, when you hear about African Americans talking about how their doctors, they've done the studies, their doctors not asking them multiple questions when they go in, yet they do the same thing for white patients. I talked about when it came to opioids. Hell, that was one example where racism actually helped Black people, because doctors were not just shoving opioids down our throats. But this notion that somehow it's just, oh no. See, here's what I think, Julian. And this is, to me, is the real deal right here. The real deal right here is a lot of white folks in America think that if there's no burning cross and there's no hood, then no racism doesn't exist.
Because they have ignored the issue of structure, because they've ignored the issue of unconscious bias, because they've ignored the issue of economic inequity. I mean, racism, sexism, predatory capitalism are baked into the cake we call America. That's just it. And so the Institutes of Medicine, as an example, did a study about a decade ago where they talked about how a Black man with a broken bone was less likely to get painkillers than anybody else. They just assumed the brother was trying to hustle painkillers, but he had a broken bone. And medicine is no different than anything else, except for they're holding our lives in their hands. So when somebody says, I can't breathe, a police officer thinks, oh, he's just faking. When in fact, they're not faking. When a sister, I could just run examples down to you about the things that happen to our people in the course of healthcare. When people assume before asking that you may be on Medicaid, so they give you a certain kind of treatment as opposed to knowing that you paid X number $100 a month for your health insurance. I mean, we could just go down the list, but the fact is that we see racism everywhere because it is everywhere. But in medicine, it's a matter of life and death. And so there are people who do not get the care that they need, the drugs that they need, the help that they need, because they are seen as less than. And that's baked into the American cake. So we are less than. We don't feel pain the same way. We don't, we don't need the same things. I have a colleague whose wife actually was sent home after a week in the hospital and ended up dying because she had an internal infection. I mean, they should have kept her longer. She should have had better care. But she was a Black woman with a relatively inarticulate husband who didn't know how to fight her fight. That's what happens to Black people.
The thing here, Clemmy, is you just got folks. And look, you deal with it in academia. You got there are white faculty folks who, why you could talk about tenure, you could talk about all kind of different stuff, and they swear, oh, those things don't exist, not amongst us. Yeah, it does. And let's be real clear, structural racism ain't about white conservatives. It's white liberals, because the operative word is white.
There you go.
Let me go ahead.
There you go.
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of things are important here. One is that, with regards to healthcare, it's baked right into the urban planning structure. And so we should really understand that, right? That is absolutely baked in that. But it's also an extension of more than a half century of quote unquote colorblind discourse in our politics, right? One of the interesting outcomes of the civil rights movement was that the civil rights movement was all about identifying the racial inequalities. But after the civil rights movement, when we start to talk about how we start to see Black politicians move from a balance of power structure to actually taking over large structures such as cities, running for governor and things of that particular nature, to secure liberal whites, you have to stay away from the race question, because the notion was after the civil rights movement, race was fully restricted, right? Everything was fine. Anything else after that would tend to push liberal whites away. In the academy, trying to get folks to see that putting an emphasis on diversity at the student level without also having diversity in the faculty, racial diversity that exists within the administrative structure is just a continuation of the type of racism that they think doesn't exist. But if you have an all-white administrative staff, if any Black student cannot look up and see that there is a Black provost or a Black dean, then ultimately they are engaged in a system of racist education.
All right. The thing here, Avis, is simple. That is, we are not far removed from Jim Crow.
No, not at all.
The reality, I mean, we're not. And people want to act as if that's the case. I remind folks all the time that, look, I was, born in 1968. So if you say 1980, Reagan's elected, hell, I'm 12. Yeah. You barely a decade, like I say, you barely over a decade. This ain't long in America.
Not long at all. I'm a 68 baby too, and my father was born a sharecropper. So we're not far from that history. And here's the reality around why white people all of a sudden go ghost, no pun intended, when you have discussions around institutionalized racism. And it is this. If you acknowledge that an immoral thing happens and you try to propagate the lie that you are a moral human being, then you are obligated to do something about it. And so the reason why there continues to be this denial of the reality of institutionalized racism is now they have no responsibility to do anything about this thing that they clearly benefit from. and have benefited from for centuries. So it's a way to be able to ride off the spoils of the status quo through the unearned advantages that you got, that your mama had, that your grandmama had, and all the way down the line, while every step of the way claiming that you earned that which you did not earn. And so until we get to a point where we can be very bold and honest in this country around the truth of what it is like, all the various forms in which institutionalized racism exists in everything, including healthcare, which is the most egregious form, because doctors have taken a Hippocratic oath to, above all else, do no harm. And when they practice medicine in a way in which you have those examples that Dr. Malveaux and you have mentioned previously, clearly they are doing harm. And so they fail to acknowledge that, and therefore they are propagating its continuation.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. When we come back, more on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment.
Are you geolocating people through the FBI based on where they were on January 6th?
He asked you about the geolocation and metadata aspects and gathering related to gathering of metadata, that is related to your investigation into the January 6th riot. Tell me what you know about this.
So is the FBI accessing cell phone tower metadata from telecommunications companies?
Shortly after 2 p.m., as the siege was fully underway, Senator Lee describes it, the phone rang, it was Donald Trump.
I hope you can understand my concern.
Sure, you can appreciate my concern here.
People begin to believe that their democracy is fraudulent. If they conclude that voting is a charade, the system is rigged, then God knows what could happen.
They rigged an election. They rigged it like they've never rigged an election before.
Actually, we do know what could happen. It's happening right now.
The U.S. Capitol overrun, under siege. Pro-Trump extremists storming inside, flooding the halls, breaching the floor of the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Millions of Americans sincerely believe the last election was fake.
It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it.
We will not go quietly into the night.
When thousands of your countrymen storm the Capitol building, if you don't bother to pause and learn a single thing from it, then you're a fool.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us.
We got to this sad, chaotic day for a reason. It is not your fault. It is their fault.
Hey, I'm Deion Cole from Blackish.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Folks, the family of SeMarion Humphrey, the young man, part of this strange, sick, demented story in Plano, Texas. They're demanding justice be served after they say he endured a hate crime at a sleepover with his classmates in Plano, Texas, which is in north of Dallas. In a viral video originally posted to Facebook, Humphrey can be seen being forced to drink a yellow substance while his white classmates from Haggard Middle School giggle and tease him. Humphrey's mother, Summer Smith, believes the drink contained urine and says her son was shot with BB guns and called racial slurs during the slumber party. Plano's Independent School District and its police department are investigating the incident. Joining us right now is SeMarion Humphrey, his mom, Summer Smith, and their attorney, Kim Cole. Glad to have all three of you here. Sorry under these circumstances. First, I'll ask you, Summer, walk us through the timeline. When did this happen? Walk us through that.
The incident happened the weekend of February the 12th when they were, well, it was a sleepover that was supposed to be just 2 people in SeMarion. So it was just supposed to be 3 people in total. And I didn't find out, though, about what happened until this past week. So when the boys took the videos, apparently the week that they were out, which they were out for an entire week for the snow week, they were sending the videos around to other people at the school.
I know it's difficult, SeMarion, but for just describe when you went to this sleepover, correct?
Yes.
How many other kids were there?
There were.
Well, the first night. So
The first night there were only, like, at all there was only one other kid there.
Okay, and so were there parents there? Were there other parental were there chaperones? Were there guidance, or y'all left alone?
We were left alone.
Which is also obviously problematic there. So you're at a classmate's house. Were y'all watching movies? Like, how did all of this even just happen?
So at first, the first night it was just me and the other kid, and we were just playing video games and watching movies, and we went out to eat. But then the second night, that's when the three boys came over, and then at first we were just playing video games and watching movies, and then later on that night, that's when it all happened.
When did you find out, Summer, what took place?
I found out Tuesday, which was like March the 2nd. The boys so there was 3 specific boys that came over that following night that I didn't even know were gonna be there. And one of those boys and SeMarion got into it about his racial slurs and about these disgusting things that he said about women. And in that, he threatened him that if he told anything, they were going to jump him. I didn't know what he was saying, tell what. I just knew that they were saying they were going to jump him. So I told SeMarion, well, you go to school and you go straight to the principal's office. And he said to me, okay, I'm really scared. We had a conversation about it. I said, don't worry. She's going to take care of it. I'm going to take care of it if she doesn't. And when he got there, and then the principal, of course, started asking, the assistant principal, she started asking him questions. And so during that, he said that he literally just told it all. So when she called me, the first call that she made to me was just like a distraught, weird, it's a lot going on. I need to talk to some more people. I need to do some investigation, and I'll be calling you back. And I was just thinking, well, how bad could it be? I mean, I know they said they were going to jump him, but they didn't do anything. So I was confused as to what she was even referring to. And when she called me back, she was saying that it was going to be a lot involved. She was the SRO officer, which is like the school police officer, I was going to need to talk to him. But that she had all of this stuff that had happened to SeMarion. And she asked him, did you want to tell mom or did you want me to tell mom? And he said, yeah, you can tell my mom. And she started telling me all of these things, and the tears just started rolling down my face because I was like, what? I'm not understanding. I need to understand what you're saying. And then to make all of it even worse, she said, and there's videos. So SeMarion just started sending me like the videos that people had sent to him from, while he was in the principal's office. So that's literally when I found out.
Kim, what do you make of the school district, the investigation, the parents? Take us through any of that.
I think they are all culpable. SeMarion had been bullied on numerous occasions on campus. The school district has pretty much taken a hands-off approach to this situation and just made this blanket canned statement that, oh, this happened off campus and we don't condone bullying of any sort. That's not true. There is a law, David's law, that allows them the authority, that gives them the authority to take action when there's cyberbullying. That's how Ms. Smith ended up finding this out, because the children, while they were out, while we were snowed in, these videos had been floating around the entire time. So most of the students at the school had seen these videos, and they were bullying him over the internet, making threats to him, telling him to kill himself over the internet. And that is something the school absolutely can act upon. And they have failed to do so. They also failed to act several times in the past when he reported being assaulted. There was one instance where he was hit with a belt in the locker room. One coach even withheld his inhaler. When he reported bullying to the coach, and you know what, and people using the term bullying, to me, that minimizes the magnitude of these heinous acts. This far exceeds bullying. This is criminal. These are crimes. And to call it bullying, to me, minimizes what these young men did. And the school has taken no action. When SeMarion reported that he was being assaulted in the locker room, the coach just blew it off. Boys will be boys. You need to get tougher skin. And nothing ever happened. And so we end up here where they end up doing the ultimate harm by forcing him to drink urine.
Can I comment on that, Roland?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I just want to say that I've had a lot of people reaching out saying stuff like, why didn't he fight back? Why? I want y'all to understand, he was asleep. He was asleep. So even in the video where he's sitting up, he wasn't coherent. They woke him up out of his sleep and said, SeMarion, you stop breathing. You need to drink this. He had, even after that, he had no knowledge because he is on medicine and he does go, like they're talking about like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. He's been asleep for a couple of hours. The other abuse was taking place in his sleep. He couldn't fight back because he was asleep. Like, how do you put your hands on a defenseless person? And then to use something that he does have like some medical issues. So to say he stopped breathing in his sleep, and then you hear, because that is his friend, or what he thought was his friend in the video, giving it to him.
SeMarion, are you still being bothered by students in school?
No, sir.
Summer, Kim, what's next?
Hopefully criminal charges and jail time. Like I said, these are crimes, and given the fact that they were using racial slurs while they were committing these assaults and attacks and shooting him, this rises to the level of a hate crime. So what's next is I would like to see these white teenage boys prosecuted as if they were black boys. How about we do that?
Summer?
I'm fighting. What I want to say, I know all these people, I really just want to, I'm glad that you gave the opportunity. I hope people are tuning in, since everybody has this, I don't know, narrative that they've created in their minds, coming to like try to attack me. Why was he had a sleepover in a pandemic? It was supposed to be 3 people. People go to restaurants in the pandemic, So I wanted to address a couple of things. For one, I know his parents. I have spoken to his parents. Before this incident, my baby has hung out with this boy several times. I know them. He would not have gone anywhere without me knowing. And I had the text messages and everything to prove it. So this is not a case of, why did you let him go with some bullies? Never, never. If he would have known that those 3 boys were going to even come by at any time, he wouldn't have gone. He wouldn't have wanted to go. This is a case of this boy, and I guess on the other side, because you have to remember, he was like virtual. So he's not going to the campus at this time. So they're hanging out outside, of school. They're playing games every weekend. He's gone over his mom's house. This is someone that he already knew, played football with for 2 years, never tried anything ever. And I just want to be clear. I have done nothing but attempt to protect him, his life, and his sister. That's the type of mother that I am. I just want to be clear in that I am going to fight. And not just for him, for all these other babies and mothers and fathers that have reached out to me about Haggard and the things that have been done and how they sweep things under the rugs. These 3 bullies have been in multiple situations and received nothing. Stayed on the football team, stayed in their regular classes. Nothing has happened. The law will be changed. We are fighting. All the people behind my baby, we are fighting. I just want to be clear. Okay, I'm sorry. I begin upset.
No. Go ahead. Go. No, you can. No, you look. Give an opportunity. Share what you want to say. Go right ahead.
I also just want to say to the police department as well that there is a disconnect because you try to go to the school because you think that's what you should do that because they're at school. These things are happening at school. They're supposed to be protected at school. So of course you're going to go to the school and think that your child is going to be protected. But the minute that you go to them, they say, oh, there's only certain things we could do. They pick and choose and then go to the police. You go to the police and they say, well, this is a bullying issue. The school should handle it. It is a disconnect there. That's another reason why I'm fighting. My inbox freezes up when I try to check the number of messages. My daughter started the petition on Tuesday before this even went viral, okay? Before I decided to even post it. And the reason that I decided to post it is because nobody would help me. Literally, I called lawyers. I called the news. I sent emails. I was like, this happened to my child and nobody will help me. The school said to me so many times, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. I even asked her, when you say there's nothing we can do, what exactly do you mean by that? Because there's all of these things that you can do. And when that petition reached 2,000 signatures in one night, and half of those signatures were students of PISD telling me their story, telling me about bullying that has happened, telling me that they have told administrators and nothing has been done. It is a problem. PISD has a problem. We moved here for the schools. That's it. I moved to Plano because their schools are rated A+. They are rated the 9th district out of the state of Texas. That's why I moved to Plano, because they deserve the education that they get for free. Let's be clear. That's why we're here. However, coming here, we should not be subjected to that. Never. And I'm not moving. And for everybody that's saying take him out that school, no. Well, he out that school. But PISD, no. Because they will change this. It will be changed. I promise you.
Roland, we're meeting with some legislators and working on presenting some legislation to close the gaps between the school and the police department, because somewhere things that are being reported to the school are not making it to the police department so that they can be investigated for the crimes that they are. So we are meeting with legislators and having them present some legislation to get that changed.
Well, for folks who don't know, I still own a home in the Dallas area. Some of you are absolutely right about the Plano Independent School District. It is, Plano is about 90+% white. The resources that are poured into the schools there are significant. And the reality is you're right in one of the best education you can for your child, but also it's important that he be safe at all times, no matter as well. And so certainly we fully expect the Plano Independent School District and as well as the Plano Police to do their job there as well. So certainly keep us abreast of what's going on. SeMarion, you keep your head up. I got to ask you this here. SeMarion, what's the one book you're reading outside of school?
What's the one book you're reading outside of school?
Oh, one book? I'm reading The Boy at the Top of the Mountain.
All right. What is it about?
It's about this orphan who gets adopted by Hitler, and it just shows his perspective of the world and and just how he operates and just kind of how he feels about the whole situation.
All right, then. Well, the reason I ask, anytime I come up against a young man or woman, I always ask them what they're reading. I used to read 300 books a summer, so that's why I did that. And so keep excelling, keep doing well, and we'll certainly keep covering this story.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you.
All right, well, appreciate it. Thank you so very much, folks. All right, folks, got to go to a break. First of all, real quick, let me go back to my panel. What you heard there, Julian, is a mom who wants the best for her child, and this is what we were talking about, Julian, when we have to fight for rights, fight for our issues to be addressed. This woman is saying, my son must be safe.
Absolutely. And I admire her fierceness and her tenacity. She said, I ain't moving. You know, she moved to the Plano area because they have better schools than other places in Texas, and she wants the best for her son. But the account of what happened to him is bone-chilling. He's 12, and he's had to go through that, and I wonder what impact this is going to have on the way that he operates in the world later. He's got a fierce mom, he's got a great attorney, but this is not how a youth is supposed to operate in the world. They're supposed to be safe. They're supposed to be able to play. You know, it's bone chilling.
Avis, you're on mute.
Sorry. I said, yeah, it's horrible and sad to see. I am certainly hoping that she will see some justice from that school system. But it sounds like it's interesting to me. What she's finding is each side is like pointing fingers at the other side in order to not have to take any action with regards to mandating that there's accountability from this young man's abusers. You know, any other time you find that Black kids are picked up in school with resource officers or not at any time. And it's interesting that she's gone to the police and to the school system and hasn't gotten any sort of satisfaction from either one of those authority figures that's supposed to be charged with keeping her child safe.
Clemmy?
It's clear to me, Roland, that this young kid has suffered an absolutely terrible situation. And as a former state trooper, I feel that the Plano Police Department clearly let this kid down. The school district clearly let this kid down. His attack is invisible to them in ways that only reminds me of the type of racism that existed when Black folks entered into white areas during the post-World War II period. It is a sign of how we have regressed, that this young kid's humanity was completely invisible to both the police department and to the school district.
All right, then. Panel, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us. Folks, when we come back, Fit, Live, Win Monday, we'll talk with fitness expert Averi Woodley. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I believe that it's movement time again.
In America today, the economy is not working for working people.
The poor and the needy are being abused.
You are the victims of power, and this is the abuse of economic power.
I'm 23 years old. I work 3 jobs.
Work 7 days a week. No days off.
They're paying people pennies on the dollar compared to what they profit, and it is time for this to end.
Essential workers have been showing up to work, feeding us, caring for us, delivering goods to us throughout this entire pandemic, and they've been doing it on a measly $7.25 minimum wage.
The highest check I ever got was nearly $291. I can't take it no more.
You know, the fight for 15 is a lot more than about $15 an hour. This is about a fight for your dignity.
We have got to recognize that working people deserve livable wages.
And it's long past time for this nation to go to 15 so that moms and dads don't have to choose between asthma inhalers and rent.
I'm halfway homeless.
The main reason that people end up in their cars is because income does not match housing cost.
If I could just only work one job, I could have more time with them.
It is time for the owners of Walmart, McDonald's, Dollar General, and other large corporations
to get off welfare and pay their workers a living wage.
And if you really want to tackle racial equity, you have to raise the minimum wage.
We're not just fighting for our families, we're fighting for yours too.
We need this. I'm going to fight for it until we get it. I'm not going to give up.
We just need all workers to stand up as one nation and just fight together.
Families are relying on these salaries, and they must be paid at a minimum $15 an hour.
$15 a minimum anyone should be making to be able to stay out of poverty.
I can't take it no more. I'm doing this for not only me, but for everybody. We need 15 right now.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, so let's say you're trying to lose weight in a short period of time. How do you mix it up? How do you switch up the workout? How do you switch up your eating? This whole notion of confusing your body. Well, my next guest says you can do that. She's got some tips. Averi Woodley joins us. Averi, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about this. So talk about this what you describe as sort of confusing your body when it comes to working out and eating.
Okay, so what this method means, you're really tricking your body. Okay, if you do the same thing when it comes to your eating and your workouts, your body gets used to it, and you can hit a plateau. And we all hit a plateau eventually. All right. So what you want to do is you want to change it up so your body doesn't really know what to expect. So when it comes to the eating, which I've talked to you about, there's something that some people do called carb cycling. I am not big into fasting, but I am big into carb cycling, okay? So what that means is, say, for instance, today I had oatmeal and a protein source for breakfast, okay? So I had my carb in the morning. Then say I work out, I have a carb during my lunch and protein and all that. And then for dinner, I just go like protein and veggies. So on Tuesday, what I would do is I would not have a carb for my breakfast. I may add it in later in the day. So what that happens is your body goes up and down, okay? It doesn't know what to expect, all right, with the eating. So you can switch it up like that. Now, when it comes to those workouts, which you've done the high intensity interval training, right?
Yes, of course. Yes, I have.
Yes, okay. So you guys have probably heard of HIIT training, or like I just called it high intensity interval training. And there are various programs of interval training. It's been around for years. It's not just, for athletes. It's a form of working out. And another tip that I want to say is that you do not have to be jumping around, okay? A lot of HIIT workouts that you'll see on social media will have people jumping off of boxes and burpees and all of that. You can go high intensity and low impact. So if you have a back problem or knee problems, you can definitely do that. And the notion is that you exert your body for a short amount of time. So 20 to 30 second bursts, and then you recover in that same time. So you're just really pushing your body to its top level in a short amount of time, all right? These workouts are normally between 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes max, and you do not do this style of working out every day because it is intense. You really only need 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week with this style of workout, and there are multiple benefits to it. One of the main ones that people like is that your body is still working in overtime when the workout is finished. So for example, Roland, if you're doing just a normal workout, whatever you burn during that workout is what you burn. When you do interval training, you burn during the workout and your body keeps working for up to 24 hours post-workout, all right? You don't need a lot of time. You don't necessarily need equipment, but you can. Like I've seen you on the treadmill doing your interval training and the bike and the elliptical, which is perfect. Increases your metabolism, strengthens your heart. There are all different benefits to this. And another major one is that you lose weight. Okay, you burn fat without losing muscle. So a lot of people don't want to do certain workouts because they want to build and maintain muscle. So this style of working out will definitely allow you to build and maintain muscle while you are burning fat. So it's honestly it's great, and anybody can do it because you can do the jumping, you can do those crazy workouts at a high intensity, or you can do something like slow, steady state interval training, and it's low impact if you do have any injuries or ailments.
So, so when you talked about the food piece and the workout, because I've had some other people, they've hit me on social, I had some other people say, look, the reality is losing weight is 80% your diet, 20% working out. Some say 90-10. Okay.
Yes.
And so when we talk about even the eating part, like last week, I had Jim Jones, and Jim said, "Hey, I think people talk about you drink a gallon of water a day." He said, "I think it's too much."
I think it's too much.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you can consume almost too much water because you also have to think, whatever you're eating, a lot of stuff that you're eating, so if you're eating certain fruits and certain vegetables, they also have water in them. When you cook spinach, what comes out of it? It cooks down to like this much. It is a lot of water. So you do not need to drink
like
a gallon
cabbage.
of water
Cabbage is mostly water.
Yeah, cabbage is a lot of water. People who eat watermelon has a ton of water in it. So you can have too much water. People just see stuff on social media and they don't know what they're doing, and they're walking around with all these big gallons. You do not need to do that. At all.
All right, so that's the case, and then also we talk about again consumption. I see all these different charts. You should be doing 2,000, 2,500 calories. I have other people who say, look, you should not be counting calories. You should be weighing your food, all that sort of stuff. Okay, for a lot of people, they're like, look, I'm just going to throw my hands up. I don't know what the hell to do.
Okay, so you have to find what works best for you. I'm not going to lie, Roland. I don't count calories.
You ain't got to.
No, but even before, years prior, with my first son, I was up to like a little over 200 pounds, okay? And it wasn't a healthy 200 pounds. So it's not like I was working out. I was eating complete junk, ice cream 3 or 4 times a week, fast food, and everything like that. But even then, I didn't count my calories, and I didn't weigh my food only because I was trying to get the working out and the eating done and being, busy. So I had to do what worked for me, and I just did small. Like, there are certain things that obviously you should not be eating a lot of, or that your body doesn't agree with. If you're eating, consuming a lot of dairy and you're bloating and you feel sick, then that means you need to cut some of that out. But and then when it comes to carbs,
it's like for me, I know bread is like is evil, is the devil.
I know it's
bread
so
is the devil. I got nutritionists who put together a meal plan that includes bread. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to tell you, this is not a good idea.
Yes, I know, but I know. So that's the thing. For you can't do bread. All right. Like for me, I love pizza. I love pasta and all of that. But anything with those heavy creams and cheeses, like if I eat it right now, I'm gonna have to I can feel it and see it sticking to my body 2 weeks later. So that's the thing. People have to find out what works for them. Obviously, now when it does come to food, you want to make sure, you'll see the diagram of the plate, okay? You want to make sure that normally your protein source, whatever your protein source is, it outweighs your carbs, your carbohydrates. You also want to make sure that you don't have anything low in protein, high in fat, high in sugar, so you can glance at the back of a label. So for example, if I am about to eat something and the carbs on the back of it say it's like 46 carbs, that's honestly enough carbs for me to have within a couple meals. I really try to stick between 25 carbs per meal, and that's just for me. But you definitely want to make sure you have a balance of your vegetables, your greens, your protein source, and your carbs, all right? Carbs are not a bad thing. They're like putting gas in your body, okay? Your body needs them to burn, but you need to do healthy carbs, and you can definitely even Google a list of complex carbs, which are good. But people honestly just have to find what works for them and just kind of filter out all this information that is out there, which is awesome that you have this part on your show because it can help people do that.
And last point here. So you take these HIIT workouts, you take the cycling, if you will, all this sort of stuff along those lines. What really is a target goal you should be if you lose weight to lose per week? And last point, do you recommend getting on the scale? I know you hate the scale anyway, but for those folks, should they get on once a week, or some folk it's every day?
Okay, so honestly, ideally, you should be losing, like, depending on the healthy weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds a week. Now, obviously, if somebody is considered excessively overweight, they may have a week where they lose 4 pounds, especially if they got strict 4 pounds or 6 pounds. But ideally, 1 to 2 pounds a week is a great target healthy weight loss. And those are the pounds that you shed that will not come back on. You know, so some people would do something crazy and lose 10 pounds in 1 week, like, oh, I'm going to do this cabbage soup diet, 10 pounds, and then they go smell bread 2 days later and they gain it all back. Now, as far as the scale, I personally do not like scales, all right? It's not that I'm against people weighing themselves, but years as a trainer, what happens is people get obsessed with the scale and they get on and they get off and they don't see a change. Or sometimes they're heavier throughout the day, and I feel like it just really plays tricks on your mind. So what I used to have my clients do is I would definitely take their measurements, okay? So before you get serious, you want to take your measurements because you can lose a ton of inches and it will look like you've lost 20 pounds. I had people that lost 6 inches and maybe 5 pounds, but they looked like they lost 20 pounds. Their clothes fit completely differently. So I would suggest taking your measurements or having somebody take them and then getting on the scale every 2 weeks. Okay, every 2 weeks, and then sometimes every 4 weeks, because you can do like a 4-week cycle, all right? So you can choose like a certain style of working out and a certain meal plan, do it for like a 4-week cycle, and then do your measurements and your weight and everything after that.
Well, I got one of my folks on YouTube who said they're on a bread diet. Trust me, I will never be hanging out with them because I know
Right.
I can easily put on 5 to 8 pounds in a week if all of a sudden I mean, bread is that is straight up. I'm telling you, it's the devil.
It's like you have an allergy to it. And that's another thing is that sometimes there's certain stuff that we all know we could eat when we were younger that now it just sticks to our bodies differently. And it's really like your body's rejecting it. And that's probably why you feel like that. It's almost like having an allergy without like the hives and the swelling and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, my body don't reject it. Oh, it takes it, but it keeps it. And that's the problem. All right. Averi Woodley, how can folks reach you?
They can reach me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, Averi_Woodley on Instagram and Twitter, just Averi Woodley on Facebook, or email me at info@averiwoodley.com.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, if y'all want to support what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered, please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. You can support us via Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com /RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland@RolandSMartin.com or Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can also send a money order to New Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. All right, folks, that is it for us today. We certainly appreciate you watching today's show. Thank you very much for supporting all that we do. Of course, if you, if you missed any of today's proceedings in the Derek Chauvin trial out of Minneapolis, go to our YouTube channel where we actually have the video of the news conference with George Floyd's brother, as well as the videos of the protest happening outside, as well as the jury selection. So all of that is there. Every day we'll be live streaming events out of Minneapolis. And again, this is one of the reasons why we got the Associated Press. Look, it cost us $101,000. Your dollars made that possible for us to be able to tap into that service, to be able to get those live streams. So if we can't be there in person, we, of course, have Associated Press to provide us the feed. And so we appreciate y'all supporting us to make that possible. That's why I'm always sharing with you how much this stuff costs, because it's important for us to be transparent with you, so you see how your dollars are actually working and how your dollars in action here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. So again, Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com is /RM Unfiltered. You can also, of course, Zelle, help with us, Zelle. Zelle uses the email Roland@RolandSMartin.com or Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And so look forward to having a great show tomorrow as well. See you guys then. Y'all take care. Have a good one. Holla!